erotic manner.
Okay.
And because we're not professional, I don't have any kind of live stream buffer, so it's all right. We are live. We are live. We are here on the 6th night of Christmas. I mean, the 6th episode of Depths of Gaming. I am Necroscourge.
comrades!
Yes. Russian intensifies. Though I don't know, Jahith. We might have to break up because because our countries are going to be at war soon between Syria.
No.
No?
No. We don't care about Syria. At least not where I live, in the communist land.
Yeah, we're mostly making fun. He's from Poland, so he's actually not really affected by this whatsoever. But
Nope, not at all.
It's topical and funny.
Yes.
I saw this political comic this morning that was of Putin and Assad sitting next to each other, and Putin's got the phone and he's like, Trump wants to bomb an airplace. What time should I tell him? Yeah.
I guess. Who's there? Knock knock, who's there? Whatever.
Knock knock. Who's there? The
Yeah.
communists.
Alright, apropos knock knock jokes, I actually found one that is quite interesting about Crimea.
I didn't know you
Yes.
could make a good knock knock joke about Crimea.
Putin is calling Obama
Mm-hmm.
and is saying, knock knock. Obama responds,
Who's
there? Yeah. Putin then responds, Crimea.
Hold on, I'm gonna try to do my best
Okay.
Obama impersonation. Crimea, who? That's a horrible impression, but I'm trying.
Crimea River.
Yeah. Something I'm gonna have to work on, doing a good Obama impression.
Well, he's no longer relevant, so I don't think
He's no longer
going to be-
relevant, but we miss him so much.
Hey, Obama, would you like to come over here for a third term?
Remember when nothing bad was happening, yet everything was still somehow his fault?
Yeah.
A
It's
cat's up
almost
in the
like-
tree. Fucking Obama.
Yeah, we went here in Poland. We went through the exact same thing with Mr. Donald Tusk.
Donald Tusk.
Yes, he was our prime minister, candidate for president, and he was basically our version of Obama. No matter what he did, it was his
It was
fault.
always his fault. Everything.
Yes. Tramways are not on time. Tusk's fault. Trains are not working. Tusk's fault. What else was there? Ship has broken down. Tusk's fault. A airplane had fallen in Smolensk with our president on. Tusk's fault.
Oh, that Tusk. He's quite the troublemaker.
Yep.
But
Anyway,
on to what we're actually here for.
yes, exactly. Let's get back to our wonderful gaming news. What do we have on the roster today?
Oh, well, what we have on the roster today, sir, is Eternal Crusade has just released a State of the Crusade newsletter, and it
Sounds interesting.
it's not on screen how because I'm not gonna show the world my private emails, but because there's way too much porn on there.
Quote unquote private emails, quote unquote.
Quote unquote. But the main thing they were talking about is how their average users and their average revenue per paying user has increased. But by a small amount, but it's still better than nothing, and it's way better than a decrease. So
It's definitely nice.
So they're of course attributing to this to the free-to-play initiative that they just began in March.
Do you mean that one initiative that the game was supposed to start with?
Yeah, you know, that one that they promised at the very beginning and then took away and then later did anyway? Yeah. And part of it is because the tale of Eternal Crusade is quite an interesting one. Because the people that have made it, Behavior Digital, I think it's the only actual game they've really made, because we both looked at their credits, and we were
we've been researching them before the show.
Yeah, we kept looking, and we couldn't find anything that they actually produced that wasn't a mobile game.
To be fair, they might be experienced developers who just bonded up recently. We didn't get that far in our research.
That too. We haven't looked that far.
The studio itself doesn't really have a very big portfolio of games.
Which is funny because it's got a bunch of big names on there, but
Halo Wars.
No. I mean like Dead by Daylight and Star Citizen. However, I think they actually did make Dead by Daylight. I'm not 100% sure. When I researched that, it just credited one guy. However, on their website, they say they made it. So I'm not 100% sure. Star Citizen, though, they only did the art. They were hard to do the art, but but it's proudly displayed on their website. That kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I bring this up because when they brought the game out, they were doing this huge Founders Pack push. Is you got so and so points from the different the many different levels of pre-order pack you got, and you supposedly got priority access if you bought a high enough pack, and as the test went on, the lower priority packs would get integrated. They got about halfway through that, and then they just gave up and just put everyone in.
Mm-hmm.
So the only winning move was actually to just buy the lowest level of pack, because if enough people bought it, then that's what was just going to happen. Is they'd go, oh well, we can't do a real test with 10 users.
Makes sense.
So that's why Founders Pack testing a game is a really stupid idea if you aren't the biggest game in the industry. And
pretty much.
And it doesn't help that the Eternal Crusade, they molyneuxed the fuck out of it. They
promised a lot of shit. They
promised so much, and they didn't really do much of anything with it. The end result is a pretty cut and dry team shooter, and I don't know. I'm biased because it won't run anymore on my computer. The whole damn thing just crashes.
Yeah, apropos of small studio trying to develop for PC and then way unoptimizing the end product.
Yeah, the game's not optimized whatsoever. So that's part of it. But they're getting users. They're progressing, and I guess what people really wanted was a really bland shooter with Warhammer skins.
Well, it looks quite interesting. The only gripe that I have with the game is that the models for the Space Marines look way too pristine for the setting. Because if you look at the setting it's all bombed to shit. It's war-torn and completely destroyed. But when you look at the model, it's all smooth and silky and shiny, and it basically looks like every one of those Space Marines didn't fight out one day of their entire life.
Yes.
In that battlesuit.
And now, to be fair, part of the Space Marine agenda every day is to maintain your armor. So there's a level of cleanliness that's to be expected. However, it's not gonna look that clean.
Yeah, where are the bolter
where's the scarring? Where are the bits taken out of it? Like, come on. But
that's the only reason why the model itself does not, at least for me, doesn't feel like it fits in the setting. I've seen the videos of the gameplay. I've seen the models in action. I've seen the screenshots of the game, and not on any of it. It feels like the model lives in that dusty, war-torn setting.
Well, yeah, it's because they want to present what people think war looks like, not what war is actually like. And that's just true for all shooter games.
Or there was miscommunications between the arts departments.
Well, that too, but there's always this focus on showing this armor like it's completely clean. I mean, I remember when people were railing against the concept of they were promising this open world RPG at one point. That was basically a World of Warcraft Warhammer edition. Because this was about the time the Warhammer Fantasy MMO was around, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the big draw was you could eventually get in Titans, and there were, like, worlds and stuff. And I remember reading this PC Gamer article where this one designer was, well, you can't just go to a Space Marine town and talk to an NPC to get quests. And I immediately facepalmed and went, was that honestly your approach? No wonder the game didn't work. It's because you copy-pasted from a tried and true, air quotes by the way, a tried and true formula.
Yeah,
and
basically Gears of War?
Well, no, they were trying to Warcraft
World of Warcraft it.
They were trying to Warcraft it, I remember they were railing against the Dawn of War 2 campaign because it was extremely true to the Warhammer universe. However, it was not true to the perception that people had of the Warhammer universe.
Mm-hmm.
Because realistically, you're going to have a grizzled sergeant in command of every different squad of Marines.
Yeah, pretty much. And every single squad of Marines actually... The Space Marines, the entire military structure of the Imperium is actual military, and it's not actually fun to be in the military.
Absolutely.
Right? You have to follow orders. You have to basically
what they didn't
adhere
like
to...
is how each squad was led by it was very RPG style, and you had to like mix and match equipment and stuff like that, and I felt like that was pretty true to the Warhammer lore, and people were railing against it. It's the Warhammer universe. There aren't magic items everywhere. And I facepalm and went, yes, there is, dumbass. The whole concept
there is warp
of the magic. The concept of magic items is that they're these ancient artifacts that are really powerful, kind of like every ship and piece of equipment in the Space Marine arsenal.
Yeah, I believe that in the Dark Age of Humanity, humanity actually had the level of technology was so advanced that they could basically spawn planets on a whim and architect star systems. And many of the technology that is available to humans in 41st millennium is basically a hand-me-down from that era.
Yeah, all of their equipment, including their armor, is essentially scavenged from times before.
Mm-hmm. And it's easy to imagine basically a civilization that has the power to basically create planets on a whim, to create like magical weapons that to normal human like us would seem enchanted and magical.
Absolutely. And now they've been talking up the third Dawn of War game like it's completely departing from all the progress that the second game made, but I just hope that the single player and multiplayer are the same game this time. I thought it was really embarrassing how they had this really true to Warhammer single player campaign, and then the multiplayer was literally just the multiplayer from the first game. And it was really sad. I think it would have been really awesome if each player, if like the single player, had groups that were led by commanders, and it was more like role-playing game, fight it out. That would have been kind of interesting to me, but they didn't go that route.
Yes, it actually reminds me a lot about Verdun. Basically,
it turns out it's pronounced Verdun.
Verdun. Wow. Fuck pronunciation.
Verdun, yeah.
Fuck pronunciation, I'm communist. Basically, in Verdun, you can join a squad on one of a squad position, and then basically play out the charges and all the attacks made during the World War One, and the game is structured in such a way that it actually encourages you to do so.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of soft, but in Verdun there's a mechanic where you get a bunch of squad XP. Basically, if the leader of the group has this aura, and if you're within the aura and you do stuff, the game likes that and will give you a bunch of XP. So even though so the proper way to play is not to have people spread out over the whole area. It's to have four tactical groups that are operating as units. However, just because of how first person shooters work, no one really does that unless they're in a clan.
Yeah, which is sad, but on the other hand, that also makes it so that only the people who actually care about the game play it in the most efficient way possible.
And
you can't really charge in like head first and expect to get a good result.
Like, I would love a Warhammer game where, like Verdun, where it was a third-person shooter, and you had your guardsmen loadout, and it was everyone was fucking guardsmen. It was guardsmen versus like some other like force, and
like
you have
Blood Angels or orcs
like orcs.
plethora of. Well,
orcs would be good because there's a lot of them, so it would kind of work out.
Yes.
And then the orcs would, of course, be the more melee focused and less on guns. While the guardsmen, of course, have all their flashlights.
Yes, of course. they have flashlights. But they also have bane blades.
Yeah, and I think that game would work because there'd be tons of guardsmen on screen. They'd be like moving around. Warhammer games work when there's a bunch of shit moving around on screen. I don't like these first person shooters that are going, "Oh, look at us. We're a Warhammer game, but there's only 10 people on each side in this battlefield for some reason." I thought Kill Team was unofficial, but yeah, Eternal Crusade, Warhammer. I like talking about Warhammer.
Yeah, Warhammer is one of those games that actually makes people open up, especially if they know about it and bond with each other.
Well, Warhammer's a great property because it's a story, but it's also a game, and so that's why it has a little more appeal than I think something like just a regular novel, because
what also helps is that it's so big. It's the entire lore is gigantic, and no matter where you bite in, it's bound to for you to find.
There's a story to be found everywhere.
Yeah,
but
there are people who basically enjoy the Eldar and the way they work. Like the Eldar, in order not to fall to chaos, they have to specialize and focus on some area until they gain absolute mastery of it.
Yeah, like every faction and race has some sort of story going on for them, and they have comics and novels. Like the orcs. The orcs, you'd think, oh, well, what could they possibly make about the orcs that would be interesting? They made a whole comic about a band of orcs that was basically just doing various gimmicks, and it was hilarious. There's a point where they have to catch the squidgen. There's a point where they have this one character, Killboy, who he's taken part in like 50 air engagements, but he's crashed in every single one. and he's got like 5 kills. 3 of them were friendlies.
Also, I like noise marines, which are the chaos space marines that used to attack with metal. Now they just make noise. They have noise guns.
Now they have sound guns. However, if you look, there are several websites that sell conversion bits, and I think one of them has Chaos Marine guitars.
Yes.
I'm just saying, is if I had a ton of money and I wanted to make a Chaos Space Marines force, I wonder what I would make. What do you mean I can't take Noise Marines as every single squad in my army? Because they're like specialists, right? They're not core.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I kind of want to look it up right now, but I don't.
Yeah,
we have to
you can do that after the show.
We'll do a proper tabletop Warhammer segment some other time.
So for now, let's move to the next topic.
Stellaris has released finally. Oh God!
So much fun.
Finally, the Banks patch. And so the Banks patch is what's being described as the first major expansionary patch to the game. They went, here's all the things that are wrong with our game. We're going to take this and we're going to see what we can do about it. And they did, and they came out on top pretty much in every way. I still think it's rough though. Like the Ascension perk system is a little rocky.
Yeah, it could use a little bit more polish, but nevertheless, it is still enjoyable. Even at the stage it is right now.
It's still really fun. It's just I would have hoped for a little more choice in what perks I could. How I wish the tradition. We'll talk about this later. But I wish the tradition trees had a bunch of options, and if you picked 5 of them, then the tree was complete. You couldn't do it. I would have preferred that.
Like that.
I would have preferred that over having a set 5 that you have to take as part of that tradition tree.
That's interesting, because that actually would lock you to a very specific type of gameplay for that session. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah,
I don't know if I would like it. If that, I think it would make it a little bit too complicated.
I don't know. I would like to. I want it to be complicated though.
Oh, of course, because dumbing down games is for pussies, right?
Absolutely. Filthy casuals in their simple games. Fucking casuals.
Send them to the gulags.
Send them to the gulag. Send them to Gitmo. Alright.
Alright, Gitmo is like American gulag.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But so let's talk about what the patch does before we talk about the expansion.
Yes.
Is there just a patch? No, that's all the expansion features. Hold on, I have to find it. Prepping. Okay. Fuck. Well, let's start by talking about ethics. They took out collectivist and individualist.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they did that is because you basically had to pick collectivist if you wanted to do slavery, and you basically had to pick an individualist felt like the weaker of the two, even though individualists were preferred. It was kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really that clear from a because here's the funny thing about Paradox is they do something and then everyone picks that up and they runs with it and they ask questions and then they get really mad that people are asking questions. Like, for instance, they kept streaming before the game was released, and they'd streamed the game so much, and they released it to all these people, and they'd streamed the game so much, and so everyone wanted to, of course, ask about the game. However, they had this stupid non-disclosure agreement where they weren't allowed to quote, review the game. Now, review is a completely subjective term. It could mean whatever the fuck you want.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one streamer who he was freaking out. He said, "Oh well, I wouldn't prefer using the influence. Influence isn't always there to be used, but don't confuse that for review." I was like, "Whoa, dude, calm down."
Yeah, it's the non-disclosure agreements, depending on how they are worded, are can be a issue, especially for people who.
Well, if you want to know why YouTube
for our
streaming
generation,
is dying,
basically
that's
the
why.
YouTube generation. Yeah, it's a lot of difficulty for the YouTube generations because we are all like 18 to 20 to 30-year-olds
Americans
who
are hilarious
are
because
nerds.
Americans love their labels. They're obsessed with labels.
Labels.
Labels, like identity politics. For instance, whenever anything bad happens in the world of politics, the left gets blamed for it. Now, never mind that when it comes to the actual issue, the left is usually for that. But it's their fault, just because people are used to knee-jerking go, oh, well, it's the left. The left
of course.
The left are the bad guys. Same here
Well, of course, it's the right who are the bad guys.
Yeah, it's the right who are the bad guys, but the left gets blamed for it.
Yes, because, when you actually have a problem, then everyone is responsible, and you have to blame everyone, and you have to send everyone to the gulag.
It's a lot of blame shifting. But so the thing here, wow, I got sidetracked. Oh, okay. Well, rambling aside, they made it so it's authoritarianism, and they made it so it's egalitarianism. So an authoritarian, and that's more cut and dry. You can easily look at it and go, okay, oh, that's right, I was talking about labels. But
Basically, authoritarian is basically someone demands something to be done and it's done, and
yeah,
egalitarian is the best person for the job that has its done.
yeah, an egalitarian government is very meritocratous. They're more about everyone. A lot of socialism. A lot of everyone should be happy. Um,
The greatest make a decision that generates the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people while harming the least amount of people.
yes, because the best level of consumer products that can't, besides chemical bliss, which is more of a anti-slavery measure than an actual choice, is a
You mean
utopian.
anti-revolutionary measure? Just give them pot.
Just give them a bunch of heroin; they'll be fine.
Yes.
Is utopian abundance, and that's basically where everyone has their health care, everyone has their goods, everyone's happy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a socialism. And so they're still they're still quite prone to being picked because they matter so much governmentally.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's not so much of an obvious take. And the other thing they did is they added hive minds, which I have not played with yet.
Yeah, hive minds sound incredibly interesting.
They sound very interesting, and having one in the game will gradually change what happens. But I haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah, we still need to figure it out, because we've been actually playing Stellaris recently with the new patch, and we've been having a lot of time, a lot of fun. Despite any nitpicks that we might have, we had a lot of time we had a lot of good time for the game.
Yeah, we might sound a little negative, but don't be confused. We absolutely love this patch, and the thing is we weren't playing Stellaris for months because they were going, by the way, the entire game's balance is going to be flipped on its head in the next patch. So, oh well, then why play? Good job, Paradox.
Well, I wasn't playing Stellaris because I was playing Arma at that point, but yeah.
Oh, well, whatever. I wasn't playing Stellaris because I was excited for the new patch.
That makes sense.
And true enough, the new balance is different because, keeping with ethics, they also did away with the government grid. And now they made it so you just pick your authority. So you really are customizing your government this time.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of what should have been in the game the whole time. They just didn't know how to do it right yet.
Yeah, a lot of game creation is basically revolves around refining the idea down from a simple mechanic to one that fits more with the type of game that developer wants people to have. Because you have to realize that once you release a game as a developer, you usually do not have the luxury of changing it afterwards, but nowadays you actually do. You can actually see how people play, take notes, and then change it in such a way so that they have more fun, the people, and you have actually and you actually encourage the way the game is supposed to be played.
Well, yeah, this is something that was generally born out of games like EverQuest and World of Warcraft. Is they found out that in order to keep people interested, they had to obviously add to the game and change it and make it better. And
yeah,
Paradox has long believed in this. So Crusader Kings 2, for instance, began with one continent, and then now it's almost the entire eastern part of the world. That's pretty freaking awesome, and I was excited for Stellaris because it promised a game where you could customize every aspect of it and play it a different way every time. And this patch brings it closer to that goal, and for that I agree. The other thing they did was civics. In doing away with the government system, they made it so you pick your authority, so democratic all the way to imperial, and that affects how secession works, and it also kind of deals with a few parts of how your country works as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imperial is you have your heir, you have your ruler, and there's nothing you can fucking do about it. Where democracy is every 10 years you're changing you hold an election.
Actually, an interesting thing that I've noticed about the game. I've been playing single player, and because I'm playing single player, I can allow myself to play on fast speed of the game.
Well, I typically play on fastest.
Yeah, but with multiplayer, you actually can't, because
you kind of can't.
Yeah, because people have you can slow down for yourself, but you also have to slow down for others to catch up with their stuff that pops up on their screen. But that aside, I've actually noticed that while playing that fast, I've noticed that I've been getting like elections every like half an hour or so, and that's coming from a player who plays a race that has actual oligarchic government, right? So that means every 50 to 60 years they are changing, and it's once every half an hour or so, which kind of makes me think, okay, if I was playing an actual demographic, that would be annoying, because they would be popping out their new leaders like that.
Well, the democracy in general is difficult to keep up with, because every time you elect a new leader, they have a mandate, and if you do that mandate, you get a bunch of extra influence.
Yeah.
However, it takes so long to do that sometimes, and obviously sometimes you might not have the space to build the stations they want, because it's usually building either research stations or mining stations, and it's usually not that easy to do, and it'll take longer than 10 years unless you have a bunch of frickin' money.
Yeah.
And so I guess democracy would be the kind of nation you'd have to be in order to build wide. It's kind of hard to build wide as imperial or heir, because now all of your influence comes from the factions.
Yeah, pretty much.
So one more thing while we're talking about ethics is the civic system. Now you instead of having an advanced form of government that was just a slightly better version of the government you chose, you pick civics, which are essentially the upgrades that were available. However, you could just be any government now and get them. They're no longer unique to specific government types. So now any empire can have the credit increase thing. And the civics you choose will change the classification of your government. So you'll still the government types are technically still in the game. It's just it conforms to what you pick, not the other way around.
Yeah, so that's nice. That's giving you a lot of flexibility in creating the type of government that you want to create.
Yes.
If you want to play a Star Trek idealistic government, you can do that. If you want to create like Klingon Empire you can do that. If you want to create the Borg Collective, you also can do that.
Yeah. This new version of governments really changes up the amount of playstyles that each government has to them. And then there's just kind of the generalist picks, like plus 10% minerals, 10%, and those are fairly generalist. I don't know. So, what is? That's right. You mentioned this, but lifespans. They've made it so it's far easier to get lifespan upgrades.
Oh yeah. If you get, for example, I usually like to play with the venerable people.
Yeah, he always plays venerable races. So he already gets very long life.
It's like plus 75 years,
plus 75,
right?
Yeah.
Then you get a leader that has a resilient trait, which gives another 25 years on top of that.
I don't think you're allowed to take both of them, are you?
No, resilient is a trait of specific leaders.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So that leader can get another 25 on top of that. Then you get like the flesh is weak, which expands your lifespan for another 40 years. So now you have 140. Then you get another trait that from the Unity tree that gives you plus 10 years. So you can easily have a leader that's going to live for like your entire game. You can win the game before he dies, or she.
Well, yeah, you can have people that are alive for some time. It's pretty awesome, and the thing is that really saves you a lot of influence after a while. I think they changed the spawn rates of almost everything.
Oh yes, you wanted to talk about the spawn rates of the planets, right?
Spawn rates of the planets. The spawn rates of the planets, they made it so there are far less primitives, far less planets. Even if you jack it up all the way to 5 times. And I'm so glad they let you do that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And this has two net results. Is number one, it makes it so that there's far less lag in the game, because what would happen is every single player would have 3, 5, or 6 primitives near them, and if you play like I do, you're able to conquer them. And so I like to conquer them in order to get the room. And the issue, however, is that other people would make them into full-on space empires, and so there'd be a ton of different space empires with a ton of different fleets and a ton of different power, and it would slow down the game to a very notable level, because there'd suddenly be 40 to 50 different empires.
Yeah, running around. That makes a lot of sense, yes.
And now they also change it so there's far more border increase. And they also made it so that Unity is very much so the building tall resource.
Yes, basically what you're you're getting less unity the more planets you own, right?
It's the more
Is it based on planets or distance?
Oh, it's based on planets and population, just like technology is.
Oh, I see. Makes sense.
Because originally you didn't want to bloat out too much because your tech would take a massive hit.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't want to bloat out because not only does your technology suffer a little bit, but your Unity production is technically going to rise. It's going to get bigger.
But the cost is going to rise.
But the
as well.
cost is going to grow so high that you're not going to be able to do much of anything. And you have to wait before you bloat out because you need to get as many perks as you can, and you definitely need to. This is part of why I was recommending they change how the tradition tree works, because the green tree for for expansion, one of the bottom perks is it lessens the penalties for new colonies on Unity by a whole third.
Nice.
So every 3 planets you establish is saving you 1 planet's worth of Unity production. So that's pretty awesome. However, you want to make sure you have that before you bloat out.
Yeah, I've noticed that they are actually around mid-game. They're allowing you. They're giving you a lot in terms of terraforming capability. That means that since there are fewer planets that are habitable to your particular race, so you have to spread out further apart. But then once you reach the mid game, you actually have ability to still expand, but more in the terms of consolidating and
Correct.
Consolidating your empire, basically making all those planets that were not habitable and within your borders habitable, making your empire much more dense.
Megastructures. That's what the habitats are for. Because if you
structures, yes,
if you stay small and you let your Unity build up, and you get all your Unity buildings, you get your curating vault, you get your you can do your supremacy thing so that you can rival everyone next to you, and then be like, fuck you! I get even more Unity. There's a way where you can be small turtle man and do it.
And mega structures are awesome, at least in theory, because I didn't get to it yet, so I don't know.
We haven't played all night yet, so well, technically you did the other day, but I have not played all night in a game to get to mega structures. I'm thinking that's what I'm gonna do almost immediately after this. Is I'm gonna start a single player game, and I'm gonna try and get ring worlds, because that's been my goal. Is I want fucking ring worlds.
Why not Dyson spheres?
Well, Dyson spheres are awesome too. But that's the whole idea of the mega structures, is you're supposed to stay nice and small. And you build up, you get your Unity, you keep your fleet going. And
basically, whatever you do, you have options.
And the other thing is they're also incentivizing you not to focus on capturing territory. And through expansion, they also want you to throw out your frontier outposts. So another logical early game thing is you can go, well, how about instead of just getting a bunch of Unity at first, I'm going to just claim a bunch of land with my frontier outposts. And that's what I don't do that because I stopped building frontier outposts after they patched it in so that sectors didn't freely pay the free cost for the frontier outposts.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, after they fixed the bug, I stopped building them. And I don't know. That's because they kind of want you to play a specific way. They don't want you to focus on colonization. However, I like focusing on colonization because I get to build my giant fucking fleet.
I guess the reasoning behind it is because they cannot give you more stars. They try to give you more options to do with what you already own.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the idea behind the megastructures is they want you to turtle up, they want you to mind your fleet, and then once you get to that point, you're going to start building all your habitats. You're going to start building your habitats, and then you're going to get your handy dandy ring worlds, and the lulls begin, and you start building ring worlds throughout your tiny little empire, and then all of a sudden you have a shit ton of awesome planets, and then all of a sudden all of your core sectors are ring worlds, and you look at everyone and go, "Hey, come at me, bro."
Yep. Makes sense.
I wonder if the Fallen Empires get mad if you have ring worlds. I noticed they changed it by
that
the
would be
way.
interesting.
They made it so the Keepers of Knowledge always have the ring worlds. Halo reference.
So yeah, what? So that's going to be the. Another thing that they changed.
Oh, we can keep talking about Solaris
science.
for hours.
Yes,
Science.
Science vessels specifically. They made it so that other vessels as well. They basically made it so that once you queue up a lot of orders and one of the orders gets fucked up, for example, by an enemy ship, that's especially relevant to science ships.
Yeah. For construction
the
ships
entire
too.
queue is not deleted, right?
Yeah.
It's not erased. The ship is going to remove only that one planet, that one point in its travel, and then will try to work its way around it. So that's going to remove so much headache.
Well,
but
playing
also what they
Hyperlane with more than one science vessel was a super annoying micro task. It was insanely annoying.
And now, what they did, they also gave you the ability to auto explore before you actually start explore everything, right?
Yeah, I've been noticing now that despite surveying feeling faster, I've been consistently unlocking automatic exploration far before I've surveyed the entire galaxy, which is awesome because normally I would have it right as I finished surveying the entire galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
So huge difference there. I like that. As for speaking about technologies, they added Urantic crystals, which I noticed spawn far more than any other thing in the game. They made it. I don't know what happened. Is they fucked up the rates that resources spawn, and Urantic crystals are everywhere. In almost every game I've played now, I always have Urantic crystals all throughout my territory, and there's maybe 6 Pytherian dust in the entire galaxy. There's maybe 6 of this, 6 of that, 6 of that, but I have consistently more than 10 Urantic crystals. Now, I'm not complaining. It's an awesome resource. Because
maybe they just want you to focus on those energy weapons.
well, they used to be the only weapon in the game that didn't have a energy resource or a damage resource.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they included something that does that really is awesome, because some of the best weapons in the game are energy weapons.
Very much.
For instance, the particle lance. Probably the best long-range weapon in the game. Better than the mega cannon, for sure. The mega cannon doesn't hit smaller vessels very easily, despite doing insane damage. Well, the particle lances are fairly reliable.
Okay, so is that everything that we have for the
Species
Stellaris?
rights.
Species
They have
rights.
very heavily changed how factions and politics work in Stellaris. Because before it was just kind of, there's us and then there's other people. Now you're allowed to set... You can either be lazy and just set species rights for everyone at once and never fuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have it to where you can set specific rights for every different species. For instance, if you only want your species to have utopian abundance, you can do so. If you want a specific species to only be your soldiers, you can do so. You can micro that to where if you only want your strong species to appear when making armies, then you can do it that way.
In other words, you have options. This is kind of a theme
Yes.
for the Stellaris so far. They are giving you a massive amount of options, regardless of your style of play.
And they also added a ton of different factions. Factions are all loosely kind of tied to one ethos, and and as more people adopt the ethos and the faction, they have more and more demands, and these demands, some of them only... Well, it's kind of mixed. Some of them matter about species rights, like there are supremacist factions that have started appearing for me. Space racists. But yeah, there are different groups, and you basically choose which groups that you like and which groups that you don't, and these are going to be the ones that basically fit with your play style.
Yep.
Like they're not really that mutually exclusive. Some of them are. Like obviously the We Love Xenos faction isn't gonna be possible with the supremacy factions, but that's kind of because they have differing ethos anyway. So, but if you are kind of on one side of the spectrum, then about half of the factions are gonna at least give you a little influence. That's why you want to stay small, because the bigger you get, the more ethical divergence happens, and consequently, the more factions appear.
Yeah. Initially, that happened in our game. When fractions happened, I wasn't actually used to the idea that they change the way they work. So I basically started suppressing
everyone? Oh,
yeah,
so
just like I did with before the update. I just suppressed all the fractions to shit. To the
that's the major change, is now you actually like factions most of the time. So
especially when they agree with me,
and especially because they've removed almost every other means of gaining influence.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all factions. Well, factions and special events.
Yep.
And war goals. I mean that's the other thing that they're trying to get you to do is they want you to declare war just to humiliate people. And I'm more of like, I want all their land. What the fuck are you talking about?
There are other ways to gain land. No, they're not. War! Glorious, glorious war.
And through the Ascension perks, there's also the 3 end games. Right now, me and Christian have been almost exclusively doing robots because that one seems like it's.
Well, we have one game, so yeah, exclusively.
Well, I played a second game, and I've been focused. It was my same race. I was just focusing on robots.
Mm-hmm.
And the main reason for that is it's people have been bitching for that for a long time. I've wanted to have a robot race. Like, we've all wanted robot races. They're awesome.
Yeah, and now we have the Flesh is Weak.
Yeah, the Flesh is
which not
weak.
only extends your lifespan, but which we talked about previously, but also gives your race like prefix, like super and the name of your race, or ultimate and the name of your race.
Well, it used to be there used to be a rare event. Well, I say rare event, but it always happened. Is there was an event that would spontaneously change your race as they'd cybernetically augment, and so they'd be called a different race, but they didn't have any real different denotation. Now that's been replaced by the Flesh is Weak. Is now your whole every single species within your empire immediately gets turned into cyborgs, and I believe they also just, if people immigrate, they also become cyborgs over time.
Yeah, it would be nice if they added like a graphics changed the icon, but I know that this might have been difficult to implement.
Yeah, it's not going to really happen.
But still, it would have been fun.
Well, it says there are 20 Ascension perks, and I, for some reason, feel, there isn't enough Ascension perks. Well, one last thing, civics. For the expansion, they added 3 special civics that are real game changers. There's Mechanist, which starts you with robots. There's Syncretic Evolution, which starts you with a dumb worker race. And there's Fanatical Purifiers, which is even xenophobia than... You basically become the Empyrean of man. You must purge the heretic. You must distrust the alien. You must destroy.
Destroy the mutant.
Yeah, you. Well, what is it? It's beware. It's, I know one of them's beware the heretic. Purge Xenos filth. I'll look it up later.
Yeah. We know what you mean. Yes.
Okay. Steam is getting really, really comfortable with porn.
Or at least with lewd imagery in their games.
So, years ago, there was this game called Hatred. And
it was like 2 years ago?
Yeah. And this game was what kind of triggered everyone because it was essentially a black and white version of Postal. Is you ran around, he even wore a trench coat. It's this dark and edgy dude that's like, I have to kill everyone. The cops are human shields. I am pure. That kind of crazy shit. and
Mhm.
it's a
Crawling in my skin.
yeah, it's essentially what people think emos are like. Um,
Well, he's not really an emo. He actually pulled the gun and actually started shooting. So emos are more of a bitch version of that.
so he just basically kills his way through the town until he eventually gets to the nuclear reactor and just blows up everyone.
Yes.
And so that game got a lot of flack. It got pulled, and then everyone was like, "What the fuck are you doing, Steam? There are plenty of games that are far more terrifying than that." And they went, "Well, yeah, you're kind of right." So they let it on. And ever since then, they've been progressively letting more and more edgy content onto their platform. They've even been letting visual novel games on. They let on Hunie Pop, Honey Pop, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And
What is it?
Hunie Pop. It's a Connect 4 game, and when you play long enough, you see the girls naked.
Oh, yes.
It's a dating simulator mixed with a Connect 4 game.
Guys, if you want porn, there's Google.
And the thing is I wag my finger at this because because the censored version's on Steam. However, you can just download a patch and slap it on there, and you get the naked. Steam went from giving a shit to just not giving a shit almost from year to year. It was insane. And we're bringing this up, and you've been looking at these three girls for some time now on this because there's this company called Schoolfield Games, and their very first title is coming to Steam through from Stream Greenlight. Thank you, Stream Greenlight.
Yes, your last fart after death.
I know, right? This is kind of what. Now, here's the thing: is Steam Greenlight's just going to enable more of this shit to happen. It's fine, but it's they don't have to put everything everyone likes on Steam, but they're apparently doing it because they want the money, Lebowski.
Well, of course, because don't you want money? I want money. Give me money.
Give me the money.
Yeah, I like money. Give it. Give,
so
give,
I'm
give,
not
give, give, give.
I'm not 100% sure about what the game's about, but all I can gather is that you go to this island with these two cute girls, and then there's like this. I'm assuming the black chick is like some kind of primitive that you run into, and or no, she probably like lives on the island, and she's like lived on the island her whole life, and you bang her.
Well, of
too.
course, because she's black.
Of course.
Because all black people live on islands, right?
Well, I bring this up. It's blocked by their icon, but this character, she wears a loincloth, not a bikini bottom.
Well, of course, because black people wear leon cloths and skins and so on.
And
they are savages, right?
And I find this alarming because the whole point of wearing a swim bottom is so everyone can't see your vagina when you're running or moving.
Yeah,
or
I guess.
Or in a stern breeze. I don't know. I just think that it was just two horny guys that are like, oh, we're gonna make this game and people are gonna kickstart it because they like, and these three girls have like no ribs. Look at this. No ribs.
I would rather not.
This one, your sanity is saved. You can even see on this chick where they in the middle where it's just a right angle. Her hip here, it's a right fucking angle. They're right angles. This isn't real. well, it shouldn't be realistic, but because holy shit, how old are these chicks? But I'm just alarmed. I'm alarmed that Steam went from having a conscience to not.
Well, I guess whatever floats the boats of the players, right?
Now, I don't give a shit. I think it's great that they're gradually letting naughtier and naughtier stuff on Steam. I think that's cool because people have kind of shown, well, we kind of want that.
But your issue is more with the fact that if you want to let raunchy stuff on Steam, at least make it a good raunchy stuff.
Yeah, let tasteful naughty stuff on. Like The Godfather 2, it was edgy because all of the hookers that you ran into had no top on. The hookers and the strippers, both of them actually, just both profession. Any woman that was basically in one of your businesses was usually topless.
I see.
And this was really edgy because it was like I think Godfather 2 was EA, wasn't it? It was EA, or it was one of the major companies. So usually they don't do that. But they went, it's the Godfather. What are they gonna do? It's not like you could walk up to them and go, this nudity has no place in your game. It's the 1940s in a fucking speakeasy. Yes, it is. Or no, 50s. Godfather's 2 is in the 50s. Right? I think so. I don't know. Anyways,
I have no idea.
Schofield Games. Oh, by the way, we're gonna launch our company by making a game where you try to bang these 3 schoolgirls with huge breasts. By the way, our company name, Schofield Games.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Alright, on to answers no one wanted.
Yay!
So, there's this story that Scared of Hippies posted. How do you deal with sexual assault in game? Nearly completely new group in DM. One of the PCs in my group wants to rape another PC. The DM's willing to allow it with only in-game punishment. I've tried to talk the DM out of it, and he believes that in-game castration will deter it. I'm not convinced. Any thoughts, helps, and opinions? So I'm going to start this off by saying I think it's copy pasta. That sounds like copy pasta to me. We've discussed this before. Any story that has to do with new players and has some ridiculous thing going on, it's usually copy pasta.
Pretty much. But now let's first focus on the meat of the matter here in this question.
Yes. Is it okay to rape another PC in D&D? Now, here's the thing: is the monster manual for 5th edition is surprisingly rapey. Orcs are extremely rapey. They Luthic, who is Grumpsh's wife, is the kind of fertilizer person, and Volo's guide expands on this, but they essentially capture adventurers and people that they fight, and they bring the women back to rape. Ogres are also quite heavily established as rapists.
However, there's a difference between player character doing it and monster doing it, right? Because I also don't see many DMs actually playing the rape card.
Well, they don't because it's fucked up.
And that's basically
if you're not coming to the game expressly asking for that, it really shouldn't happen.
Yeah, basically the entire all those questions boil down to D&D is for fun.
Yeah.
If your player is a dick, and the only way for him to get his rocks off is to fuck over another player, then there's something wrong with the player, not with the game. Now, if we want to argue technicalities, yes, technically there's nothing wrong with a character doing something raunchy to another character, because they are just that. They are characters. They are thoughts. You cannot really harm them, just like you cannot harm a series of ones and zeros in a computer game. However, the only borders here are the borders that the players themselves and the DM want to set. If all players are okay with this, and the DM is okay with this, then I see nothing wrong with it.
Uh-huh.
There are even fucking expansions to D&D, like the old ones, with all sorts of raunchy stuff, like the Kun golems.
There was the erotic guide. There was a nymphomancy supplement.
The erotic guide actually gave you a table. Yeah, Book of Erotic Fantasies actually gave you a table of which creature can breed with another creature.
Yeah, they had whole bunch of charts, and it was interesting, but it's really not for most people. It's because
it's for the select few that have that.
It's for the select few, because for most people that aren't attuned with the fantasy world and all that, all they know about rape is that it happens to women every day and it's really horrible.
Yes.
And it really is. It's horrible in the world, in the real world. It's extremely horrible.
Yes, and the world would be a better place if it didn't happen at all.
Yeah, people would just stop fucking doing it. That would be great.
Yes. However, it has to be said that some people actually have rape fantasies. Not really doing the raping, but being the rapee. There's the entire culture of S&M. People who are sadists pairing up with people who are masochists.
There's a very notable part of the population of many countries that is okay with it happening in a controlled setting.
Yeah, as long as you remember your safe word, everything.
It's kind of strange, cool, because it's technically not rape at that point because it's consensual. However, we don't really have another word for it, so we kind of that's where a lot of the confusion comes.
Mm-hmm.
But back onto this is, if you walked up to the player and you want, hey, can we do this little storyline where my character forces your character to do the nasty?
Mm-hmm.
And they say okay, and you walk up to the DM, say, hey, would you be okay with this happening in your game? Said okay. That's all good, because when someone says, I'm not, are they alright with this? Hey, we all talked about it, we're cool with it. Because it doesn't have to be a horrible thing.
Mm-hmm. It can be used for character development.
Yeah, it can be a character development thing.
For example,
but what this sounds like is the guy was suddenly like, all right, well, in this night I'm gonna
they just want to do it for kicks. Yeah.
I'm gonna force open the door and I'm just gonna bind him and fuck him in the ass. And I'm going, you shouldn't do that. And the DM, so the story is asserting that the DM had guards, is that the character in some way reported this, or the guards caught him. They don't go into specifics, which is why I'm kind of calling phony on the story. I like my specifics. Uh, they're going to castrate this character. And yeah, that's kind of lawful. More lawful evil, but even that's kind of a little too raunchy for it's I mean, I can see the appeal because Game of Thrones really kind of rocketed forward as everyone's idea of what what fantasy realms look like, which isn't
Yes,
accurate
fantasy.
because it's very low fantasy, very low
Yes.
fantasy.
Fantasy. When it comes to fantasy, people in popular culture do not really know that there is much more beyond the Tolkien's elves, orcs, and Middle Earth, right?
Yeah.
However, the games like The Witcher, for example, they can actually show us that fantasy does not have to boil down to just that. It can be much more than that. And I think that we really need more of that diversity in fantasy. For example, I read a very interesting book, of course, in Polish, because I'm Polish, that revolved around a fantasy concept of getting into the world between life and death. And basically, the main character of the story is a guy who actually gets a role of Charon or Charon from the Greek mythology, the guy who takes people from the across the river Styx, right? They can give him boons, and he can then, once they give him boon, he can send them all on forward to the afterlife. And the story was interesting because it actually explored that world in between, the places where grave tragedies happen, actually created like a psychic imprint on the area, making the world in between constantly relive that horrible attack, for example. But there's also another thing that actually pretended more to fantasy, where you could actually grind up a soul into a powder, mix it with water, and drink it, and then have a very strong flash of memories of that person, which was kind of wicked.
Well, yeah. Well, World of Darkness has a lot, especially New World of Darkness. Almost every setting has has an ability or power set that's extremely rapey.
Yes, exactly.
Like the blood, how ghouls are made. That's an extremely rapey process. I mean, the bite itself is invasive, but it's not. It's not.
Yeah, and actually in World of Darkness, it's especially twisted, right? Because in World of Darkness, Satan, the Lucifer, the guy that actually we consider as the big bad guy, is in all actuality a good guy.
Yeah, he's actually not that bad. It's hilarious.
You can do so much with fantasy, and we are stuck with this this magic, wizardry, elfy, dwarfy kind of thing. It's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I think it's very strange how people run into RPG and they use all of their personal assertions on how things should work instead of consulting the rules or the GM. And I don't understand this mindset. I do not understand it at all. Because maybe it's just not wanting to seek help. Maybe it's a fear of having to read. Maybe it's maybe it's just easier for them to not have to learn how the game is played and just use what they know I'm not sure. I think part of it is because it's as easy as sitting at a table and talking. I think that's what confuses people. Is they think all they have to do is just sit at the table and talk, and then they get a pass.
Actually, sometimes that might actually work. You don't really need a system in order to have a good role-playing experience, because
there are plenty of games, however, we're not playing that.
Yes, but the origin of D&D came from the
chainmail.
From the chainmail? No.
Yeah, there was a game Chainmail.
Well, I was more meant to say that the philosophical concept of D&D evolved from the theater, the interpretative theater, the basically the what it's called, there's a type of comedy where you go on stage without any plan and you try to improv. Yes, improvisation theater.
Mm-hmm.
And this is basically what players are doing. They are taking on the roles and trying to tell a story amongst each other. And the rules from D&D or from Shadowrun or from whatever system you pick, they are there to give it structure, but the core element, the core purpose behind all of it is having fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not that fun when we're focused on preying on the other players and disrupting the party.
Yes.
Like, I don't.
Or pissing off the GM.
Yeah, like I don't get the line of. There's this line of thought or this line of defense, where it's what my character would do. Well, you don't know that entirely, and then there's the fact that there's always so many options. Characters always have options. People have options. People aren't. Mm-hmm. I'm so amused when people talk about their character as if they always do one thing, if posed with the specific choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. There's sometimes where that's extremely obvious. Like the paladin clearly isn't going to side with the devil. That is all evil and shit. He's not going to do it unless he's a devil worshipper himself. But don't don't use that rationale to fuck over people.
Yeah, the primary purpose, you have to realize the purpose why you gathered with your friends to do this. You gathered there not to fuck with them, not to make it difficult for them. You didn't get there to basically make enemies out of them.
Mm-hmm.
You went there to have a good time, and that should be underlying every single decision, or whether the player is making it, or DM is making it, or whatever. Whatever you do, do it with the primary purpose of having fun. And I think that's basically the message we should end on.
Absolutely. It was a good show, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya!